Oh gosh, Joe. I wish I'd asked for these questions beforehand so I could prep. Wow,
That's no fun, is it?
that's no fun. Oh my. Okay.
So, Tom, how did it all start for you? I mean, did you become a musician on purpose?
Did I become a musician on purpose? Yes, absolutely became a musician on purpose. Apparently, my mum took me to a workshop when I was really little with a guy called the Man Zeke, who was like I think he was the first Afro-Caribbean disc jockey on Radio 1. And he did a workshop at the library, and I sat on his knee and played his djembe, and he said to my mum, "This boy is a drummer." Um, and then I joined the church choir when I was
That must
about
have,
seven.
sorry, just not to interrupt you, but that must have been really weird with all the people like shushing you.
In the
It was like a
library.
percussion work. Shh.
I know,
Oh,
of all the
that,
places to have a drumming workshop, right?
yeah,
In the library. Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, so then when I was seven, I joined the church choir because my big sister was in it, and that meant I wanted to do it too. And that was really good. That's where I first like learned to read music, and I remember when I was about eight, I was standing in the corridor at my lower school, and I had this flash of inspiration that when I went to the next school when I turned nine, I'd be able to have music lessons, and I just made this decision there and then. I want to play the drums, and then as my life has gone on, whenever there's been a decision to make about whether or not like I can be a musician, I've tried to take the one that takes me in that direction.
So you sang in choirs in church?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
You
What,
didn't
like
know that?
reading the music and everything, like a proper
Yeah.
musician.
From the age of seven until I was 19, I sang in lots of Royal School of Church Music choirs.
So where did it
Wonderful.
all go wrong?
My voice broke.
Oh, is that what it is? When you were 19?
When I was about 15, actually, when I was about 15, I could sing treble all the way down to like to the bottom end of the bass register for like quite a good, maybe 3 months, I reckon. I had that whole range, which was really fun, and then I just lost all control of my voice.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, I've been on
You've
stage with
heard
you.
me sing.
I've shared a monitor with you sometimes. Yeah. When I was at college, they put you in this thing like chorus, where you have to go and you go in the choir, and they just say, bass or tenor. I mean, I didn't even know. I was
Right.
like, no idea. So I just followed the guy, my mate Ricky. I just said, oh, he's a tenor. I'll just be a tenor. But of course, I could absolutely. It was ridiculous. That was as much as I think. Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of connection for some people between music and the church and religion. I think it's not something that I ever experienced myself, but being a big fan of musicians that grew up singing in churches, I'm
Sure.
thinking more of the kind of Stevie Wonder variety than perhaps what you were doing. But there's obviously some kind of connection. Is there a connection between music, religion, or spirituality, or whatever you say? This is what a question to ask somebody in a folk band. Are music and God connected for you,
Wow.
Tommy?
For me, yeah. Well, oh gosh. Um, d- yes is the answer. Is the short answer. Yes, they are. Um, like I don't know. Wherever you are on that spectrum, it's undeniable that there's been a connection between music and religion historically. Think of all those classical composers who had church patrons that actually employed them, meant they could have a job. But also obviously there's um, there's moments like I remember when I was I don't know 14, and I was singing some Allegri in Bath Abbey, and the architecture and the acoustic and the sort of solemnity of the occasion all sort of comes together in this really quite like unbelievable experience, I think. Multi-sensory experience, so that can of course go hand in hand with spiritual experiences. But for me now, it's more that music is in essence what I would call a spiritual thing. It's it affects how you feel, and it can affect how you think about the world, and more than anything I think it affects the how you experience the passage of time. And one of the ways you can think of music is a joint decision between people to experience a certain amount of time all together in what can be a very profound way.
Wow, I wasn't expecting you to actually answer the question. I said, well, that's a fantastic answer, that. Thomas Robert Chapman.
Yes.
Or is your middle name Stephen? No, it's Robert, isn't it? Yeah.
Robert, yeah.
Is it? Okay, Robert. Yeah, I knew that. I knew that. Okay, you are considered to be one of the most influential and sought after Cajon players in the world today. How did that happen?
I don't know about in the world today.
Tell us how you got into the Cajon. Well, okay, so in the world, you say that, but I mean, in terms of Cajon makers from Spain and sitting alongside people like Stuart Copeland and Zakir Hussein in magazine articles about the Cajon, being the person who's chosen to demonstrate the Cajon and teach it for Idrum magazine, etc., etc. I mean, I don't know how else we would define that. You are certainly one of the most influential sort of the Cajon players in the world. So let's be straight talking about this. No, well, it's true. So I mean, how did you get into the Cajon? Why the Cajon?
It's mostly your fault, really, from being in the folk ensemble, and I'd started seeing it a bit, and then I think Trevor Lyons, who was playing bass in the folk ensemble at the time, I think he lent me his, because he had one really, really early days when you couldn't really get them anywhere over here, and then I immediately wanted one. In fact, my housemates bought me one for like my 20th birthday, I think, or my 21st. And I just I fell in love with it instantly. I just wanted to play it all the time. It made a sort of sense to me. I think sometimes that happens. You pick up an instrument and it's not like natural or easy, but it sort of makes sense to you and you have an affinity with it. So there was that. And then quite quickly I set up a Cajon players group on MySpace, and I added all the Cajon players I could find from around the world.
What was that, Tom? Do you
remember MySpace?
MySpace? What was that?
Man, those were the days, 2005 or 6, something like that. And yeah, and that was great because it was those early social media days where you could do that. You could set up a group of like a really niche interest, and you're talking to these people around the world, and it's just you guys, and it was great. People sharing all these resources. I really got into it, and Paolo De Gregorio, who makes cajons as Cajon DG. He saw a video of me playing with you in the folk ensemble, a small group in the folk ensemble, and he said, "I'm making this documentary about Cajon players around the world. It'd be great to include you because it's kind of folky, haven't got anything like that, and you're from the UK, haven't got anyone from the UK, because there was like no one playing the Cajon in the UK." So he included me in the documentary, which was amazing. And actually, getting a copy of that documentary was huge for me because he literally catalogued everyone he could find playing it around the world, playing all this interesting music. So there was, the history of the instrument, over in Peru and then Cuba, and then the way it spread over the last 40 years or so. It's a really it's a great document. Whether I was in it or not, I would be fascinated by it. So that just got me really into it, really into it.
So for those people that don't know, I mean, what is the Cajon exactly?
Okay, so it's a wooden box that generally you sit on and play the front of. It originates in Peru sometime early 19th century, and this is, long story short, has been developed as a slightly different instrument. The snare cajon has developed in Spain alongside flamenco since it arrived there in the mid-70s. And then, of course, it's become popular since then. It had a real big peak, sort of 2010-ish, I reckon, where every acoustic band was using a cajon, and you saw them being busked on street corners and all sorts of things like that. So if you've ever seen someone sitting on some sort of drum, a wooden drum, then that's most likely a cajon.
Of course, I know. So, I mean, obviously, play kit. Whatever. Did you do kit at? Because obviously, you studied music. What is your music education? I mean, how did that go? What did you actually? Obviously, you didn't go to Cajon school. So, I mean,
no. As I said, 9 years old, wanted drum lessons. The music teacher at the school was pretty insistent that I should play the flute. She wanted more woodwind, and I badgered her and badgered her until she let me have drum lessons. I started on the practice pad, which was great. This rubber pad I used to put on the kitchen floor and just sit there and work through my exercises with my sticks and my metronome. And then, my teacher said to my parents, I think he might have some potential, so you should consider potentially buying him a drum kit. And they said, if you keep practicing, then maybe we will. And I did, and I had a kit. And then for most of my kind of later school days, I had this obsession with the drum kit, and I was in percussion groups, and it was in orchestras and bands and all that great stuff that you used to get funded back in the day, when music centres were amazing things and young people had all this cheap or free access to music. So I was in everything, jazz band, orchestra, wind band, percussion ensemble, and the percussion teachers kept saying, you should do a bit more of this percussion stuff. It's like, no, I'm going to be a kit drummer. That's what I want to do. I'm going to play the drum kit. And then I sort of had in mind, right, if I'm going to play the drums, where do I go? What do I do for university? There weren't many options back then. And luckily I was in a jazz band at Saturday morning music school that was run by Nick Smart, who is now the head of jazz at the Royal Academy. But at the time, he was running this small group of teenagers in a Saturday morning in Bedford playing jazz. And he was the one who said to me, I think you could audition for music college, you should give it a go. No one had said that to me up to that point. Everyone at my school was telling me I had to go to university, get a proper degree and all of that. And he said to me, no, I think you should do it. You can apply for university too if you want, but at least audition. And that was a huge moment for me. And I think young people need people like that. You need to cross paths with people that are professional musicians or professional music educators, and so many people don't. So that was a big moment, and it was like aligned with this thing of I really want to be a drummer. It was like, well, there aren't many better ways to learn to be a drummer than to study jazz drums, where it all comes from. And and I ended up in Birmingham because I got in. I mean, I got in at some other places, but I got in, and I liked it when I was there. I liked the vibe of it. I liked the feel of the city. I liked what I saw of the extracurricular, the elective stuff you could do, like for instance the folk ensemble. I liked.
So this is at Birmingham Conservatoire, yeah?
Birmingham Conservatoire.
I know I know that, but
yeah, right.
Both the people listening to this might not know that.
Yeah, Birmingham Conservatoire. I had a place at Birmingham University to study classical civilization and music, and I was really considering that. And that they said, "Oh, you can have your lessons at the Conservatoire," and I'm so glad I decided no, I'm going for the Conservatoire. So that was that, the Conservatoire, jazz drums, and I had some incredible teachers. Gene Calderazzo, the late great Tony Levin was an enormous influence on me. Not just musically, but just in his way of being. He's such a great man. And loads of others, too many to mention here. But obviously then I got into the folk ensemble in like my second year. I think it was my second year. Started on the floor tom with one other drummer, and it kind of quite quickly evolved into playing the Cajon. And yeah, I've been in that band alongside you for about 17 years now.
That is a long time.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you're saying about doing that thing of starting on a kind of practice pad and playing drums and then working up to getting a drum, because when I wanted to be a fiddle player, my parents just gave me a twig and a little ball of string, and I just played with those for about a year with the promise that I could get a violin at the end of it. So I mean, I think there's obviously something in it. Young people today obviously get things too easy.
Did you get the bow first? Practice with that, and then
yeah, that's it exactly. Yeah. Well, it kind of happens the other way around, But I know, but like Sabella, obviously my daughter, I mean, she had about 14 violins by the time she was an embryo. So I mean, I think things happen quite differently now, don't they? You get set up for these things, Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about what you've actually been working on now, if anything, in lockdown. I mean, what have you been doing? So obviously, I know you're a kit player, jazz kit player. We've just been talking about that. You got into the Cajon. I know that you play loads of other percussion things. I can see a load in the background there. And it's just like in this time, I've heard of lots of people being really, constructive and using the time to work on things. Is there anything you've been doing? Been getting into any kind of music or playing?
I've been doing a lot actually. I wasn't at first. I was completely devastated and at a big loss as to what was going to happen. But yeah, by now I'm into probably like the most routine I've ever had, because there's no gigs to go to and then get back from at 3 a.m. and sleep in, So I'm like, I get up at the same time every day for like 5 or 6 days in a row sometimes, which is so unusual compared to how we used to live. But no, I'm doing like, as I do design and artwork for people, particularly on the jazz scene here in Birmingham. So I'm really enjoying that, making some album covers and stuff. But and doing various other things, teaching and stuff. But musically, which is what you asked, I found these congas on Facebook Marketplace just before Christmas, and I had to have them because you never see anything beyond beginner instruments for sale secondhand in the UK. They just never come up. And they were a good price. I just had to have them. And I've played congas for years. Like I was taught congas by my first drum teacher, and I've played them mostly in a pop funk kind of setting. But this seemed like the perfect opportunity to really get stuck in and try and sort out my fundamentals, go back to square one. So I have been studying with congachops.com, which is an online learning resource. And I've been trying to get into a bit of that, a bit of kind of a bit more in the Afro-Cuban direction where those drums really come from. Certainly can't do it particularly convincingly yet, but I'm having a great time exploring all of that. And as you can see, my drum kit is set up here. This is my Pride and Joy 1950s drum kit, which I love. Every bit of hardware on that drum kit is period as well, which I really enjoy. You can see the little cowbell there in the woodblock. And so I've been recording some swing tracks, which has been really fun too, because I play a lot of 30s and 40s swing music. So yeah, and of course UFQ stuff and keeping my cajon going.
Yeah,
all that, of course.
Yeah. Pretend you do UFQ practice. Have you got any? I'm just wondering if you can play us anything. Can you play us a bit of your new congas?
Yeah. Yes, I can.
You don't have to do it now. We can subtly edit it in.
We'll take a break and set up change the mics a bit and stuff. But yeah.
So we'll just
Absolutely.
edit it in. Okay, so here we go. So this is like cue the slick. So you're going to play congas.
I'm going to play. Gosh, yeah. I'm nervous, but yes, I'm going to play a bit of congas.
Okay, here we go then. Here's a totally seamless segue into Tom Chapman playing the congas. So that's pretty good, that Tom. I'm glad you've been working on it. This obviously pays off. It's fantastic conga playing, and I thought you were a pretty good conga player anyway, personally. But here we are on the day we're actually talking is the 17th of February 2021,
It is.
And the major issues of the day, just in case we put this in a time capsule afterwards, the major issues of the day are that, the UK has left the EU, and obviously COVID-19 and those challenges. How are you feeling about these big issues of today?
Wow.
Do you feel optimistic for the future?
Oh gosh, Joe. I wish I'd asked for these questions beforehand so I could prep. Wow,
That's no fun, is it?
that's no fun. Oh my. Okay, I feel I'm trying to stay positive and I am finding positive things. I'm disappointed that we've left the EU. I'm not going to lie. It's very difficult. Today I was talking to somebody at the Department of Work and Pensions who was asking, what work had disappeared. And I was saying we were supposed to be playing in a European gig. We were going to France, weren't we? And I was saying that's
France
possible
and
now.
France and Spain.
And Spain, yeah, France and Spain. And so, I was saying that's why that work has disappeared. I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed that particularly that musicians weren't given exemption. There's no clarity on whether that was our government or whether that was the EU, but it sounds to me like it was our government. So that's disappointing. But I have got an enormous faith in young people. You and I work with a lot of them. We took a whole bunch of them to Brussels, to the European Parliament. We know how they feel. These things aren't permanent, and I've got loads of hope in the generation that's coming up. And actually the same goes for the pandemic. Actually, I do think on the whole young people are doing quite well. I feel very sorry for them, especially those who are studying at the moment. But I think we're going to come out the other side, and it's going to be really good. Something that I'm fascinated in, this is obviously my area of interest because I'm a musician, but is that the music industry was going in a kind of remote direction anyway, right? It was the idea that you had to live in a music city like Nashville or New York, was starting to erode, like before the pandemic, with remote recording, people collaborating across the globe. And also, like, the music business side of things was happening remotely and was happening online. And the pandemic, as awful as it has been for musicians, has proven these concepts, and people have been taking advantage of it. I don't know if you know this, but the biggest growth sector in the entire recorded music industry since about 2017 has been independent artists without labels that are working, on their own. And that's been the biggest area of growth year on year, and the growth has got bigger every year, to the point where the major label industry is starting to take notice and is trying to replicate that or get involved in all of that. And that's completely driven by people adopting technology and having a positive view of technology. So I actually have a lot of positive feeling about that. I'm really excited about all of that,
Okay, good. Didn't expect you to be so positive, really, but
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, because you're not just saying that, are you?
Well, people are smart enough to see how terrible everything is, like, for themselves. So I'm making an active effort to find out good news, and if I can spread it to people in any way, then I will. At the risk of being incredibly annoying.
Fair enough. Have you got so on that note of positivity? Then I'm just wondering, what out of anything, not related to this, doesn't have to be related to the situations that we find ourselves in now, but what or who would you like to recommend to other people? I mean, either just in general or to help the situation that people are in now. But what's your shout outs for things that you really rate? In anything, it doesn't have to be music. It can be music, but it could be anything.
Oh, there's loads of stuff. Actually, here's one. Right, John Ronson's brilliant. John Ronson, people might know his books. They might know him for his shows on Radio 4. I've been going back to the beginning, like his earlier shows on Radio 4, which they didn't have like an overarching theme. Every week he would have a theme, and he's just an incredible storyteller. Like Louis Theroux kind of comes from the Mark Ronson school, not Mark Ronson, sorry, John Ronson school. Louis Theroux and Mark Ronson, that would be a good collaboration, wouldn't it? No, John Ronson. Louis Theroux comes from the John Ronson school of documentary making in many ways, and he's just the way he thinks is brilliant. I'm really into these people that are interdisciplinary. They're into psychology and spirituality and philosophy and science, and art. So yeah, John Ronson's early stuff, definitely that. And I would say, what else? Mark Manson's weekly newsletter is very entertaining and gets you thinking about all sorts of things, and it's free to sign up for, and every week it sends me off on a rabbit hole of thinking about new stuff. So he's good too, Mark Manson.
Okay, cool. Should we talk a little bit about UFQ?
Yeah, why not?
There's this band, the Urban Folk Quartet. What's your standout UFQ memory then? Have you got to think? What do you think of? What's a fantastic or hideous? Maybe we should have both. What's the best and worst of UFQ memories over the years?
Best and worst. Oh gosh, there's so many that stand out. I mean, it's hard to pick. We've done some really great gigs. I feel really lucky to have done some of the gigs we've done. I think Cropredy has to be up there. That was amazing. Like 20,000 people in one field. They've all been watching the same bands all weekend. It's just a really great community vibe. It was amazing to we were on between, or just before the Coral and C6 Steve, wasn't it? And then the Coral.
Yeah.
And C6 Steve was really nice to us. He was really, really friendly. He said he thought if you'd played your violin any faster, you would have taken off, which I really liked. And I have this abiding memory of seeing my Cajon on a riser, a wheeled riser, and we were backstage, and the adrenaline was going, and just that feeling of walking out on that stage is brilliant enough. But seeing two blokes pushing my wooden box set up on a drum riser as if it was Nico McBrain's kit from Iron Maiden, except it was this wooden box with some bits and bobs around it. That was such a fun feeling. Yeah, so that was great. That was just a great gig. That was really fun. Yeah, I mean we have had some shockers, but I mean generally, I genuinely think this about UFQ. We've had some really difficult circumstances to deal with, but we always have a good gig in the end. We always have a good time, and we always put that energy into the gig. So, I mean, quite a lot happened, didn't it, in Estonia? That was one.
That was they lost all our luggage.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It was minus 26 degrees. The guy that was driving the van that picked us up had icicles on his mustache, and and your luggage, yeah, and your instruments got stuck in Amsterdam. Is that right?
Yeah, we are. It's great to arrive somewhere minus 26 and you don't have any of your warm clothes or any instruments to play the gig. I had
stocked up on extra thick thermal long johns and stuff, and it was all packed inside my Cajon. So two birds with one stone. It arrived, but you guys, you didn't have instruments, you didn't have warm clothes. It was freezing. I was falling over all the time because my stupid old boots had no grip, and I hadn't thought about that, and it was frozen everywhere. Man, what a couple of days.
I remember going. Do you remember we went down to that lake? We
went
down to this huge lake, and we kind of went down to the edge of it, didn't we? And I remember just kind of cautiously putting my just edging my toe onto it and going, I wonder if you can I wonder if it's thick enough to do. And just as I was doing that, behind on the ice, just drove back this tractor across the water, across the ice. We're like, oh. It's probably all right.
Skiing and
it's probably all right. Can I just tell? I mean, this is your interview, but can I just tell you? Can I tell my overriding memory of that was going
Yeah.
to that bar in the evening and there being a Zappa tribute band on. You're in Estonia and there's a Zappa tribute band on, and I
Yeah,
don't know
it's
what that
amazing.
stuff. We were drinking things that were like green stuff. I don't know. Don't really
And
remember.
they were jazz students, local jazz students, and I got talking to some of them in like there was like a little smoking room out the back, and they had great English, and they were asking me. I mean, they were coming out with all the catchphrases from all the current like Channel 4 shows at the time because they loved it all. They were like they were sort of debating with me whether Peep Show was better than the IT Crowd, you know, which I just thought was incredible because the way culture's changed over there so rapidly, you know, since the end of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
It was incredible, yeah.
Anyway, and the instruments turned up in time for the gig the next
Yeah.
day, about 10 minutes before, and then it
Yeah.
was the weirdest gig ever because we played all our usual tunes and they all danced like a kind of sort of weird sort of 5/4 waltz thing to it. But I shouldn't say weird; it was brilliant. It looked fantastic. I just wasn't quite sure the relationship to the music, and neither were we. You know, I think that's probably not unrelated to the fact that we've never been invited back.
Well, yeah, and there is a like not to get too serious, but there is a really interesting ethnomusicological thing going on there, isn't there? We were just talking about how they've left the Soviet Union and their people suffered really badly. So there is a huge desire to rediscover their cultural roots, right? And that's brilliant and totally to be encouraged and everything. But you can sort of understand why they would be a bit confused by a band like us that comes over and, you know, for us, our folk process involves funk grooves and involves world music and involves the music that we're around here in the city, you know. Like, I can understand why some of them who are just on this beginning journey of like, I should rediscover my folk roots would go, why do they play like that? You know, I can kind of understand that.
Not as bad as the time me and Kev Dempsey played in Lithuania, and we used to do a little encore of Dark Eyes, the gypsy jazz tune. But of course, it's a sort of a patriotic Russian song, and we were trying to get them to sing along, and they all walked out, and that was a difficult moment. But I mean, I genuinely didn't know it was that thing. But of course, for them, and then someone explained to me that the Second World War ended for them in the 80s or 90s or something, like really recently. So it was all when we're there. We went and did this big encore of a sort of Russian patriotic. But that's not how I knew the piece. So there you go.
No.
So just goes to show you need a bit of history and context and all the rest of it for your music if you don't want to be killed. Let's do some of the basic ones, okay? So, like, this is what we want to know. Have you got a favourite film?
I've got a few, but I sort of decided long ago that my actual answer to this question, because I've got so many favourite films, my actual answer has to be The Blues Brothers. And I love film and cinema. Like, I respect, clever plots, and I really like, as you know, I really like good cinematography, and I really like well-developed characters and all those things. And The Blues Brothers isn't really any of that. Like, it's not technically the best film ever, but it is the best film ever as far as I'm concerned, because it's like Frank Sinatra live at the Sands. It is the one album that is guaranteed to have mood altering effects on me. Like, it just does it every time. And the film The Blues Brothers is the same. Like, it's so cool, and the message is so like clearly about the power of music as a social force, you know, as a spiritual force. They're on a mission from God, you know, like, and you know, and that's so clearly the message. And there's moral ambiguity left, right, and centre. They're criminals, right, and all of that. But they believe in the power of music, and it brings people together, and it saves the day, and I love it for that.
Brilliant. Who? You've only got 1 second to answer this question. Who's the greatest musician that ever lived? Quick.
I can't.
What's in your head?
I can't answer that.
Well, that's no fun, is it? Okay. Do you read books?
Yes.
What kind of books do you like?
What kind of books do I like? I really like fiction. I can devour fiction. Like novels just boom. I would wish I read more non-fiction, and I'm trying to read more non-fiction at the moment. I'm reading a book at the moment called How Emotions Are Made, which is all about the fact that there is no universal emotional blueprint. So nobody feels joy the same way as anybody else. And people around the world do not have like smiling in a certain way in common. It's actually being quite like persuasively disproved, which I find fascinating, especially as a musician. I'm reading that. I'm reading Stephen Batchelor's Buddhism Without Beliefs, because I read that every year. What else have I been reading? All sorts of stuff.
How long is that book?
Well, yeah. It's a pamphlet.
Yeah. Oh, you mean you read it like from start to finish every year, not you read it every year? So, yeah, I see. Okay, see what you mean. Do you watch the news?
Yes, I do watch the news. In fact, it's not entirely true. I'm deliberately listen to the news rather than watch it for the psychological impact. It's much better to listen to it than to watch it. I read the news, but I am very ritualistic about it, because I can so easily get stuck in a rabbit hole of wanting to know more and more and more about the state of the world, and that is not healthy.
Are you into politics?
Yes. Very definitely left of centre. Have flirted with farther left than that. Have come back a bit. Have been active out there, in politics. Not in politics, but, I've been politically active. I've been an activist. Yeah.
And on a slightly lighter note, have you got a hobby?
Have I got a hobby?
Yeah.
Well, you know that in better times, my hobby is 10-pin bowling with you, Joe.
Yeah.
Right? 10-pin bowling.
What's your best score? What's your best score? I can't remember now.
284, I think it was, or something like that. Is that right? It was really high, wasn't it? Sorry, it's really high.
Really high. No, it was though. It was really, really impressive. It really made me feel good about myself.
Well, we play as a team, don't we? Like, it's all about.
We do. People wouldn't believe, how we. I think for a lot of people, they think we hadn't really got the gist of this kind of sporting thing. There's only two of us playing, and we play on the same team.
Yeah.
To get the highest score between us, that's pretty, But yes, we
natural collaborators, aren't we?
Absolutely. We used to do that a lot, didn't we?
So bowling, I love because it's really meditative, like music, and archery, and like swing dancing. Swing dancing's the big one, and I really miss that at the moment. But yeah, that's only even the last few years. I got into the music. Well, I've always been into the music, but I started playing on the swing dance scene with this emerging group of people who were really interested in playing relatively authentic 30s and 40s music. And I was like, oh, it looks interesting. And the dance teacher is a friend of mine, persuaded me. She was like, you've got to try this. And I didn't want to do it. And I did one taster class and I got the bug, and I'm so passionate about it now. It seems crazy to me that musicians don't dance now. Like, it's just music and movement, they go so closely together, hand in hand, that I'm evangelistic about it, as you can tell.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I think there's many demonstrations of perfect. What's the not cohesions? What's the word? Like anyway, coming together of great music and dancing and things. I mean, you've only got to see me and Paloma at a disco, to understand how well what the symbiosis is, as you know. So I mean, I do understand that,
Oh, man, that's a cultural thing, though, isn't it? Like I don't know how that happened. I might research.
It's very, very nice of you to say so. I mean, I think most people just enjoy watching us, but I mean, if you think it's a cultural thing, I mean, I'm like, we're willing to take that as a.
No, but I mean, you said the disco, right? I mean, I don't fully understand how that became a thing. There's a song that isn't particularly good for moving your body to, and you have free reign to move your body however you want, and you're supposed to be looking cool while you're doing it, and it's potentially part of like a mating strategy. I mean, how did that happen? When like in so many cultures around the world, like even to this day, there are these like slightly formalized but improvisatory forms where there's like a structure and a hierarchy, and they're perfectly designed for interacting with people, you know. And yet most people think of dancing and they think of some awful song at the wrong tempo, really loud at a disco, and they're supposed to just move their body however they feel like, you know. It's just...
Yeah, well, I mean, it comes naturally to some of us, but I mean, I do see your point.
I mean, what if everybody was expected to play a bit of music at a wedding, right? And that was kind of the sum total of your expected amount of playing a bit of music, and you know, everyone's drunk, and everyone gets out their instruments and goes, you know, like just do what you want, you know? Free jazz. I don't know if that's a working analogy or not, but you know.
I think it's pretty good. It just puts me in mind of something I've always thought, which is that perhaps we should kind of like swap things around a little bit, you know. So I mean, I think it'd be fantastic if at school kids, instead of doing maths, that they got up and actually did some like dancing. And I think it'd be really good for them. So what I'm thinking is we just swap them so that now all those people, you know, you don't have a first dance, you have a wedding, kind of you have a sort of first maths. Have a load of people kind of
solving an equation together,
stood around doing a bit of maths together. It'd probably be more comfortable, and it'd be more fun than most weddings, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. I
have got one very important thing to say though, to finish off with, to ask you.
Okay.
And that is there a UFQ track that you like, that you would choose to go back and listen to? And can you say what you like about it? But I'm going to let you think about that for a second. And just because we'll finish off with that, and we'll put the my idea is we'll put the track in so people can hear it and you can talk about it. So whatever it is, I don't know what you're going to choose, but we'll have that as the outro music. So if you pick something really depressing, then like, I really enjoyed that interview. So we'll do them on it. We'll ask everybody that, you know. We're on this series of interviews. But we've got so I pass this on to you now, and you're interviewing somebody next. Yeah. So can you remember what it is on the list? I can't remember who you interviewing.
I think I'm interviewing Paloma, actually.
Okay, great, fantastic.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I think it is Paloma. We've brought Ben, our fifth member of the band, our sound engineer, into it. He has a lot to offer in terms of his knowledge and experience of the music world, life in general, but also having to listen to UFQ every night. Yeah. So I think that should be an interesting one. And I'm not sure if he's maybe interviewing Dan and his Dan's interviewing me. Okay, it goes on something like that. Is there any ones you're particularly looking forward to?
Oh wow, they also. I think that's a good order. I think Paloma interviewing Ben might be particularly interesting for people that, you know a little bit about the band. I think they might find stuff in that they hadn't heard about before. You know, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
And Dan's interviewing you, right?
I think that's how it finishes. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool because he's still the new boy 6 years later or whatever it is. That's cool. Yeah, I think that'll be really good.
Yeah,
they'll all be good, I think. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have all those out as soon as possible. So what's the UFQ track that you're going to pick? Why do you like it? And we'll have a listen to it to finish off with.
Okay. So the other day I had my computer or something on shuffle, and I was reminded of this track and how much I used to love playing it. It's called Kiz Kalesi, and it's off Offbeaten Tracks. There's a tune written by Frank, and I love it because it does like clever musical things. Like it's kind of in 5/8, it's kind of in 5/4. It plays with that deliberately. It's got some cool little structures that expand as it goes through and all that sort of stuff. But it's also just a beautiful melody, I think. Really, really nice melody. I used to love playing it. Really used to love playing it. I had a good energy about it. And I'd sort of forgotten about it. So I'd really like to hear that again.
Okay, so Kiz Kalesi from the Offbeaten Tracks album. And Yeah, I think we'll just finish off there then. So enjoy the track. Thanks, Tommy. Really nice talk. Even after all these years of chatting in the van very late at night, it's nice to learn some